Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, a ridiculous homeowner association towed my car away from my driveway despite me not being an HOA member. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. So I live right outside of an HOA, and when I say right outside, I mean the people on the next block are within the HOA, but my block is not. I'm honestly not even sure why the cutoff is in that exact spot, and during this whole thing I never got an answer to it. The HOA must have also thought it was arbitrary, because they spent years trying to get the zone expanded to fit the 2 or 3 blocks on either side of them that happened to just not be in the zone. Nobody outside of the HOA wants to be part of it anyway, so a zone increase would just start a huge fight and nobody actually agreeing to sign up with them anymore. Not because all HOAs are evil or horrible, I know most are though, but because the president of this specific one was insane. She was known by mostly everybody in the neighborhood because she felt like holding one position on moderate power was not enough. So in addition to being in charge of the HOA, she was also the head of the PTA for the local school district, and the reason I knew that was because of all the times my daughter has had issues with hers only for the school not to do a damn thing about it. My daughter is part of a study group club that for some reason meets before school actually starts, meaning that I need to drive her and we need to be out the door at about 6:30 in the morning. And damn ripe stars, those times remind me of when I was a teacher. I usually got up at around 5:40 or maybe 6, and then I had to be out the house at 6:40 the latest. Especially in the winter, that is some major trauma coming back. Anyway, my brain is barely functional as I don't even have my coffee and shower for work until after I drop her off. We walk outside and the driveway is empty. My car is gone and my daughter and I react the same way to something like this happening, with blind panic. It takes us a good 10 minutes of freaking out before my brain kicks in and tells me to call the police. I called them about my car being stolen and they came to investigate and get the information on my car. Once they run the license plate into the system though, they come back to me with some news. Officer, well, the good news is that we know where your car is, and it has not been stolen. It seems to have been picked up by a towing company late last night. I can give you their number and you need to call them to figure out about getting the car back. Me, but I was just parked in my own driveway. They cannot just take a car for no reason, right? Officer, according to what we have in the system though, they picked up the car as being illegally parked and contacted by the HOA. Me, I am not even in an HOA. Can they really just get away with taking my car? Officer, if you feel like there was a crime committed, I can take a report now. Then we can look more into it. I don't know if he really couldn't do anything or just wanted an excuse not to do the work that early in the day. I don't know anything about the law, to be honest, so I didn't want to argue with him. I called the tow company to get more information and get it confirmed that the HOA did call and have my car towed. But we're not given the exact reasoning of how my car was not in compliance with them. I contacted the head HOA witch herself to find out what possessed her to tow my car away. I had stayed home from work with no way to get there and let my daughter stay home after the stressful morning, so I had some time to get myself showered and awake before confronting her. Me, did you have my car towed away last night? HOA woman, yes I did. If you had bothered to read the latest newsletter I put out, you would see that we were gonna be enforcing stricter rules regarding cars. Me, I wouldn't have gotten a newsletter since I'm outside of the HOA zone, which you know. You had no right to tow my car away. HOA woman, I need to keep the neighborhood safe. Me, okay, just for a second, let's pretend I was even part of the HOA. How is parking my car in my own driveway against anything? I was not sticking out into the street or even blocking a sidewalk. HOA woman, it was against the HOA pre-approved colors. Black, white and silver are the only colors allowed. Me, aside from that rule being stupid, I feel like a broken record repeating myself. I am not part of the HOA. You cannot enforce anything on a home that is not even a member of your HOA. If you just call them up and get my car returned to me, I won't press charges on you. I just want my car back. I felt like this was more than a generous offer on my side, and she would have to be an idiot not to accept it. Well, she is an idiot, I guess, because she refused using the worst claim I've ever heard or even seen online from an HOA. The car is visible from within the HOA, so that means it needs to comply with our rules. I had no response to this because I was just dumbstruck at how crazy she sounded. This woman should not have been in charge of anything. I was not giving her blank threats either. I sued the HOA for grand theft auto for having my car illegally towed. I also filed a separate lawsuit against them in order to get the money back that I had to pay in order to get my car back. because I couldn't sit around for months waiting for them to be ordered to give it back, but the best I could do was try and get reimbursed for it. I also forgot to mention that my car, that is horribly the wrong color and clearly an eyesore on the entire neighborhood, is just red. Just a solid red that is in no way altered from factory. A nice red car that upon getting back had a big black scratch down the entire side. As if when it was taken away nobody was careful and it got damaged. Damage nobody else wanted to take responsibility for and pay for, so again, I had to put the money up front and try to get it back in the lawsuit. It was open and shut with the HOA lawyer not wanting to take this kind of thing in front of a judge. In the end, I was given back the money. As for Grand Theft Auto, their lawyer managed to get it marked down to a misdemeanor and stop anybody from going to jail. However, it doesn't stop there, and the HOA president got some more karma courtesy of me. I was not shy to tell my story to anybody, and the news and gossip spread her all around the high school and the parents. The PTA was not too happy having somebody like her as the face for the school, and she was kicked out and replaced. As for the HOA, her reputation there was also damaged and she was removed from power there as well. Hopefully to try and stay out of trouble or getting actual HOA members to think of them in a negative light. All well-deserved punishments for her considering what she had done and the gal to think it was okay. And yeah, Ripe Stars, honestly, I'm surprised that the HOA lawyer was so efficient, I guess props to them, but I must say I would have loved to see the HOA president go to jail or prison for Grand Theft Auto. Either way, the next one is a family drama story, and if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. I've been writing sci-fi novels since I was in college. I was a relatively successful writer and I've made a living off selling my novels ever since. I don't make a lot of money, but I do bring home around $50,000 a year in book sales. Which sounds like a lot to me, but anyway, this allows me to stay at home during the day so I can write and also make crafts to sell in my Etsy shop. A few years after college, I met Tim and we instantly hit it off. We dated for 3 years before tying the knot and we bought a house shortly after. Tim makes his living off his investments and stocks, however, we keep our finances separate. This is because Tim inherited a vast amount of money from his family, and before we married, I signed a prenup agreement in order to ease his mind. We both contribute an equal share to the joint bank account for bills, and then we use the remainder of our money for ourselves. About a year ago, I landed a contract to write part of a romance series. The contract was huge and the payout was over $120,000 for a few months of work. I contributed my share to the joint account and then put the rest of the money into the bank so I could buy an RV. I've always wanted an RV because I love to travel and nothing would make me happier than being able to ride while on the road. Tim is often away on business for days at a time, so the RV would give me an opportunity to get out of the house while he is away. After 6 months of deciding, I chose a lightly used RV and purchased it from the owners for a great price. When Tim found out I purchased the RV, he was excited. He has a travel trailer, but it's not the same as an all-in-one RV. He loves RVs and he wanted to immediately take it out for a trip across the state. We took our trip and Tim could not stop talking about how much he enjoyed the experience, and he started talking about taking more trips together. I gently reminded him that even though the RV is a fun thing for us to have for vacations, that its main purpose is for me to have something to do while he is away for business. But that we would be taking plenty of vacations together, of course. Tim agreed with me and he let it go for a while. The thing is, in the past few weeks, Tim has been badgering me about taking the RV with him on his business trips. He usually flies when he goes to check his rental properties / visit family, and he's normally gone for 4 to 5 days at a time. We got into an argument because he had to evict a tenant and he wanted to drive the RV across the state in order to do so. I asked him if I could come along and Tim said he would prefer if I didn't. I then said that if I couldn't come with him, that he couldn't take my RV. I suggested that he take his travel trailer instead and he got mad and stormed out of the house. About an hour later he started texting me like nothing had happened, and then he said he was taking the RV as if our previous conversation had never happened. I called him and tried to explain that he had just purchased a brand new pickup and that if I did not get to drive his new truck in his absence, why should he get to take my RV when I'm not coming on the trip? Tim and I went back and forth, and eventually he said I could come along if it meant that much to me. I said I would, and now I'm regretting everything. I'm sitting in the back of my own RV with a man who won't let me touch the wheel. It has been 3 days since this trip has started, and all Tim has done is rant about how awesome the RV trip would be if I were not with him. It has made me question everything in our marriage, from how we split our finances to how we argue and function together. This is the first time that anything like this has ever happened, and I don't know what to do in this situation. He is still ranting as I type this, and he has never done that before either. And yeah, ripe stars, before we read the update, if you were in OP's shoes, what would you do? Do you think this is an okay situation to be in? Honestly, OP's husband definitely does not act in an appropriate manner. It sounds like there are some deep-rooted issues in the marriage, but then again, in my opinion, we don't really have enough information to judge people like this. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Update to the story: I promised I would update, but things got very hectic, and this is the first chance I've gotten. This whole situation makes me very emotional, so please forgive me if this post is not as coherent as I would like it to be. So when I posted my first post, we were basically on the road in the RV, and my husband was giving me the cold shoulder while he still complained from the driver's seat. You all had some great advice for me about what I should do, and I listened to a few people who suggested that he might be cheating on me. Well, Tim had left his iPad in the back of the RV to charge while he drove. I am not proud of this, but I was able to sneak his iPad onto the bedroom while he was distracted by the road. He was logged into his email account, and I quickly skimmed over his inbox but did not find anything suspicious. However, I then had the idea to check his sent folder and found out that he had been chatting up his ex from college. It made me sick to my stomach to read the messages, but luckily they had not yet been physical. This was translated from chat speak. The message he sent his ex was basically, "I cannot wait to get my hands on you. It's been years since I felt that mouth. I'm excited." I was disgusted, but I tried to keep calm. We were on the road headed to another state, and we planned on stopping at his mother's house. I knew that if his messages were in the sent folder, that meant that he had deleted them. Tim was not planning on being caught and was trying to hide his tracks. He wanted my RV so that he could take his ex around the state and have fun without leaving a credit card trace. I took photos of the emails and sent them to myself in order to preserve the evidence. I then went back to the front of the RV and acted as if everything was fine. I apologized, don't worry I lied, for how I had acted and suggested that we ask his mom to help us work through this. Tim said that he was sorry and that he accepted my apology. He said he was looking forward to using the RV in the future and that he was glad I had come to see reason. I smiled and nodded, but on the inside, I was cursing his existence. We made it to his mom's house, and I made up an excuse about having to change because my clothes were wrinkled. Tim went inside without me, and I started throwing all of his clothes and belongings into a trash bag. I then went inside the house, and Tim was sitting with his mom on the kitchen. Or rather, in the kitchen. Whatever. He asked me what I was doing with the bag, and I told him that I was giving him his clothes so that I could leave. Tim then got angry and asked me what the hell was I doing, and his mom was simply confused. She asked me what was going on, and I told her, "I'm not sure myself. I'm waiting for Tim to explain why he was planning to cheat on me with his ex." Tim's mom then started to cry and yell at Tim while he tried to calm her down. I know Reddit doesn't have a lot of love for religion, but Tim's mother is a fundamentalist. She had loved me from the minute Tim introduced me to her, and it would be an understatement to say that she was very upset with her adulterous son. Tim never tried to apologize to me. Instead, he chased after his mom, saying he was sorry to her. This made her cry even harder because she knew that he was not even trying to make amends with me, he was just apologizing to her. She hugged me and told me to just go home and she would handle her son. I thanked her and took the RV keys from Tim. This ended up being a minor wrestling match and left. I drove home crying, but at least I got rid of my a-hole ex-husband. Tim called me the next day and begged me to come back to him. He said it was all a mistake, that he was sorry. I asked him why he didn't apologize at his mom's house and why he didn't say he was sorry when I was handing him his bag. I told him that he didn't care about cheating on me, that all he cared about was how bad it made him look to his family. He tried to explain himself, but I cut him off and hung up. I blocked him on all social media and have not heard anything since. I've gotten a lawyer and have already started the divorce process. Update number 2. Hi there, I'm OP from the story. A friend told me it had resurfaced on this subreddit. Long story short, the prenup was not even considered during the divorce. Our lawyers worked out an agreement to split all assets acquired during marriage 50-50 to avoid a drawn-out legal battle. I did end up getting slightly more than I put in during the marriage, but not by much. In the end, I was happier to just get rid of him quickly. Comment number 2, goodness, I was not expecting to hear anything about my story on Reddit after so many years, but a friend linked me this post again. I'm a bit late to the thread, so I'm typing this on a phone. For a small update, our divorce was finalized and settled a long time ago. Our lawyers worked out an agreement outside of court, and we split all assets acquired during the marriage 50-50, which meant I ended up slightly ahead of my personal contributions. I didn't want the mental stress of having to fight my ex in court, I simply wanted to be rid of him. And yes, I kept the RV after the divorce settlement. Mother-in-law and I stayed in touch until her passing last year. She was someone who loved God, and she never truly forgave her son for committing the sin of adultery. Her own husband, FIL, had left her for another woman decades ago, and she had never really moved past it. Seeing her son commit the same sin almost broke her, especially since I'd fulfilled what she considered to be my wifely obligations. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this story, but I'm happy for OP that things turned out sort of alright in the end. I think she absolutely did the right decision here. That guy was certainly not the right person for her. She certainly deserves someone better. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. There are a couple of ways I can format this story, but for it to make the most sense, I think I will tell you what the neighbor did first without our knowledge and then get into the meat of things. Now, this neighbor is really big on the HOA and thinks that he has some sort of authority to do anything he wants. Several times we have had to kick him off of our property and even out of our pool. With him trying to claim it's public land because of the HOA, only for us to tell him that it is still our private property. And of course that he is not welcome. We have even threatened to call the police on him for trespassing if he didn't quit. His next solution was something that I find to be disgusting. So we share a fence and it does a pretty good job of keeping his wandering eyes away from us. He ended up drilling a hole in the fence just large enough that he could sit down on his side and look through. We have bushes over there, so we would have never seen it, but he was getting a great view of us and the backyard. My wife and I are the kind of people that don't like being cooped up inside, but also like our private time. Our backyard is perfect for that and we love our setup. We have some outdoor couches, a speaker to hook up music, a grill and a nice pool. And as some couples do, we sometimes enjoy swimming naked with each other. It's one of the biggest benefits to having a private pool in my opinion. Remember that at this point we had no idea about the spy a-hole and assumed that we were alone. So instead, our neighbor was watching the entire time and from what I found out later was sitting there for a good while with us being totally naked. And yeah, there's a line between peeper and creep, and with the amount of time he was watching before doing anything else, I think that he crossed that line into creep. And by the way guys, I think if you drill a hole into a wall or fence to watch your neighbor, I'm pretty sure that makes you a creep by default. Anyway, at some point during his free show, he came to the conclusion that he was offended by it and actually called the police on us. You can imagine the embarrassment as our backyard filled up with police and we had to get out of the pool and get towels around ourselves. About 5 cops in total, and my wife was mortified. She wanted to just go into the house and never come out again. I was more curious about what they were doing in my backyard since we didn't call them. Me? Can I help you, officers? We got a call about public indecency. Apparently you and your wife were exposing yourselves. Me? I mean yes, we were obviously nude, but I assumed it was fine in our own backyard. We have tall fences and wouldn't have ever gone into the front like this. I mean, you can see how embarrassed we are right now. That was when the neighbor started running over and yelling towards the cops. Neighbor, excuse me, I called to report these heathens for exposing themselves to me. It was disgusting, and as an HOA board member I can tell you right now that it is both illegal and against our bylaws. Officer, I'm sorry sir, hold on for one moment so we can make sure we got this right. So this couple exposed themselves to you and then got into their pool. Neighbor, yes. Officer, what were they doing on your property? Neighbor, they weren't, they were right here. Upon asking how he knew about it was when it was revealed to everybody about his magic little hole in the fence. He should have been glad that cops were around because I might have beaten him up for spying on us and seeing my wife naked. I couldn't stop myself from yelling and the police needing to have us be away from each other in order to get everything straight. I was busy having my own little fit wanting him arrested for spying on us, with the officer saying that they couldn't arrest him on the spot for that and I would have to file a separate report. For now, they had to finish with the indecent exposure issue. Neighbor was talking to another officer and coming up with his own reasoning of why it was considered that. For people that don't know, it's only illegal to be nude like that if you're in a public space or even around people that don't consent in a private space. Neither one of those rules were the case, so we were not exposing ourselves to anybody. It was not our fault that he was staring at us through a peephole without us knowing. I managed to catch some of the conversation going on between neighbor and an officer. Neighbor: "But I saw them nude. That means they were exposing themselves to me." Officer: "It's their private property. Unless you own this home and pool, they have every right to swim in it like that. You should not and cannot go looking at people through holes in a fence." Neighbor: "This is an HOA neighborhood. That means there's no such thing as private property. It's all public and I had to watch them to see if they were following the bylaws. I have the right to do that." Officer: "I don't know what rules it says in your bylaws, but I do know that our laws go above that, and you are wrong in this case. If you want to file a lawsuit against them, I cannot stop you, but I can advise you that you will lose. In fact, if anybody has a case, it is them for invasion of privacy." The police eventually left and neighbor was forced back on his side of the fence. I know the police told us we could sue him, but unless he was gonna try first, we didn't want to bother getting a lawyer and all of that. He most likely would have ended up with a warning and getting free legal counsel from the HOA or something, while we would have to pay out of pocket. He did warn us that he wasn't done with this and was taking it all the way to the HOA president. Then supposedly we would get sent to court and fined for exposing ourselves. That threat has yet to come and I have a feeling will never actually happen. He might not have a brain, but I'm sure at the very least the HOA lawyers do. What I did make sure was his hole was totally covered up. I added more bushes to really block him in case he tried to drill another hole into the fence. I also inspected regularly to see if he got any ideas. Again, so far he seems to be quiet and probably got told off by the HOA president. Still, I don't think I will ever figure out his logic on the whole situation. You can type in the comments if you think that what we did was wrong and if you side with him. The police siding with us was enough and we will not stop enjoying ourselves on our private property because of one a-hole. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious what you have to say about this. Do you think that OP was in the wrong or not? And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.